Weekend in, weekend out, Motorsport Australia officials are making waves. From waving flags, waving cars through pit lane, or responding to a wave for help. Wave hello to new lifelong friends. Who knows, you might just make waves around the world. Ride the first wave. Search Motorsport Australia officials today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
The Australian Formula Vee Esports Cup comes to a little bit of familiar territory. We've been all around the world with this Motorsport Australia Esports Championship, but some very familiar home turf, Sandown International Motor Raceway, beloved from those in Victoria and those around the nation, in fact, and it plays host to this round of the Formula Vee Esports Cup. You're watching it here on SimSpeed TV and on Motorsport Australia's channels. David Haynes with Scott Rankin. Scott, we have so enjoyed this championship, the mix of national Formula Vee competitors, of some very talented Australian sim racers and karters, and the kind of racing that Formula Vee produces.
I mean, that's just it. You know, it's the ability to cross over into real life that makes this so popular. It's also the ability to, you know, for a lot of these guys to wet their teeth in terms of the sim racing world, and, you know, do a little bit of crossover, something completely different. You know, it's really just good all around. You know, it's good old fashioned racing. And tonight, home horsepower, Sandown Motor Raceway. I remember this one being a barnstormer the last time we were here.
Yeah, in Springvale, Victoria, when they first married, my parents' first apartment was in Springvale South. I think they paid like $3 for it. But it's a track that's been here quite some time. The layout hasn't changed super drastically lately. It's still dominated by a long pit straight alongside the horsies, and then a little technical, a long back straight into a super committed turn 6, 7, 8 into that big stop at Dandenong Road. These low horsepower, high slipstreaming cars might very well be 2 wide, 3 wide more by the time they go into turn 6. There is the part of the configuration when world sports cars came here in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's changed over the years, and it's coming up on the calendar now as well. I'm actually going to be heading down here in a couple of weeks' time for my first time ever to Sandown International Raceway. I'm going to be going and enjoying some production cars, so really looking forward to that. There'll be a few guys out here that have actually raced these cars as well on this circuit, and of course as well 10-minute qualifying with 3 20-minute races, the same format that has been so captivating to watch thus far, Dave. It's been an interesting one. It's been a long and wild ride. We had some rounds out of order because of technical issues. Round 4 followed by round 3 was one of the wildest things I've seen in sim racing for a good while.
It was a bit of fun for a little moment there. I think it's all sorted out now as we come to round 6. And if they haven't driven a car around here, for some of our karters and youngsters, maybe it's not too late for a career switch into a horse racing jockey. Mayhaps they could cut some laps on a different kind of horsepower. We just looked at the order of things for tonight. Qualifying before we get into the racing, and of course, qualifying pretty important, I think, with some of the melee and carnage that we've seen sort of happen mid-pack on back. Caleb Belak has no time just yet, though.
Yeah, and just recently, actually, a couple of weekends ago, Caleb Belak was actually off racing Formula Fords at Sydney Motorsport Park, and was sort of conversing a little bit with his dad about that. They had a really, really good time down there between the two of them. He's only either 14, 15 at the moment for Caleb, so he's done a phenomenal. One of the biggest things I think is he's probably been the standout performer in terms of pace. So he's made a little bit of a name for himself. The next thing he's got to put together is that's racecraft, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him on pole here tonight as well. So he's got some potential. He's got a future ahead of him, I think, Caleb. But whether or not he just needs to learn some racecraft, to learn some things, we got to start at the bottom. We all got to make those mistakes and work our way up, don't we, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. So where does he go? He goes to 4th at that lap, but he still has the opportunity for one more. Cameron Dawes is going to demonstrate how not to navigate Dandenong Road. As you come in at so much speed there, you've got to brake and turn at the same time. Rear wants to step out a little bit in these super short wheelbase cars, and for Dawes, he carried a little too much speed. Rear did step out on him, and he ended up in a bit of the gravel there. Is Matthew Harriott approaching that super fast sweeper at the end of the back straight, looking absolutely flat out in this car, trying to ride that curb to point directly to the braking zone and the turn-in point for Dandenong Road there.
He's got to absolutely extract everything out of every little bits and piece. You know, it's interesting. It's one of the few cars whereby, you know, the horsepower's not quite there. Sometimes taking the shorter line is absolutely worth it in some cases, because you just don't have the horsepower to use all the track. It's one of those things that they teach you from a very, very young age. Use all the track, use every millimeter. But, you know, when you haven't necessarily got the momentum behind you, shortcut that a little bit. Be interesting to see where things land. I mean, Chapman's done a phenomenal job in the early stages of this qualifying performance. Merritt's up there beside him as well. Kyle Ridley stepping back in and being a lot more quick and a lot more consistent. I think he's really enjoying this Formula V format. We talked, you know, over the last couple of rounds. He's really had a rough time and rough go of things in terms of sim racing. Not a lot was really working out for him. So I'm actually keen to see another good result from Kyle here tonight.
He's also absolutely monstering that curb out there. It used to be a wall that's a lot closer. He's monstering that curb too. But now there's a lot more paved runoff and the wall's being pushed back a little bit, which is maybe helps the drivers be just a little more gutsy on their way in there. He's realized that this lap is not going to be an improvement, and it brings to the end Kyle Ridley's qualifying. He will be no better than 3rd. How many other drivers are out there, though, that could take that away from him?
I think Scott Craig's actually just rolling off a pit lane at the moment. I'm not seeing a lap time registered for him. So theoretically, I mean, he's still got lap times out there. I'm only seeing 2 cars circulating at the moment as well. Matthew Harriott's the other one, and he's not really going all that quickly. Sam Chapman did just practice a pit lane entry, so that'll be just in case there's some issues. Always good to practice that, you know, if the worst should happen and you need to get in there. Well, he's warmed that one up. He's practiced it.
And this is less optimal for Scott Craig. Got to be careful reversing onto those curves. Other cars might have ended up stuck there. Cars with a longer wheelbase and a less forgiving breakover angle. No problems for Scott Craig's Baja bug.
And now he's on the run down and over the curbs as well at the end of the back straight. So look, I mean, this will be an interesting one for Scott Craig. Like I said, no time registered at the moment, so he's potentially going to be. He didn't actually register a practice time either, so a little bit short in terms of practice for Scott. So I think he's just sort of getting himself sorted. But yeah, you know, times are reasonably close together. I mean, Sam Chapman found something phenomenal to punch out. That's probably one of the biggest pole position margins I think we've seen all season at 2.5 tenths, a quarter of a second. Other than that, it's been less than a tenth just about most of the season long. So yeah, absolutely found something. I'm curious whether or not it's over the curbs down at turn 3 and 4. Maybe it's at 1 even, the way that you handle the curb and carry as much momentum through turn 1 as you possibly can.
Yeah, I haven't had a good look at it, but there are some race cars that really like to take a big bite of the curbing through turns 2 and 3 as well. And then, of course, it stands to reason around here that your exit off of turn 4 and off the final corner is so critical to your lap. to take a look at this end of the racetrack. That's what I'm talking about here. 2 and 3, a little bit of a tight little chicane, and you can really make some gains opening it up if you can ride the curb. But this is a car that sometimes doesn't like to. You can see the front suspension. It's not bespoke. It is directly lifted out from under the schnoz of a Volkswagen Beetle.
I just love watching the suspension arms actually work their business from this sort of shot. Like, it just gives you a really, really good angle to have a look at the undulation. Even though, you know, we're on a straight here, look at the bumps, the suspension's still working as the car loads, unloads, and qualifying will actually time out as we run through that one as well. So positions have been decided here, Dave, and John, the guys up at the top end of town, they've done a phenomenal job.
Let's take a look at qualifying for the first of 3 races at Sandown International Motor Raceway for the Formula Vee Esports Cup. Sam Chapman and John Merritt will be the front row. Always some discussion about which is the right side of the racetrack for a front row start here at Sandown. Do you actually want to be number 1 or do you want to be number 2? Kyle Ridley and Caleb Ballack are the row behind. Lee Partridge and James Russo are row number 3, and it is a side-by-side start here at Sandown from a standing start. Cam Edwards and Tony Baker are row 4. Sean McKenzie and Matthew Harriott are row number 5. Row number 6 is Franz Estebauer and Stephen Butcher. And row behind that, Brendan Nealon and Jordan Bellack. Patrick Harding, the last driver with a lap time. He ought to be pretty well familiar with this place as one of the Victorian flag marshals. And then Thor Tuller, Brody Watts, Cameron Dawes, Nathan Allen and Scott Craig didn't have qualifying times. Drivers only got 2 flying laps, and I guess maybe Dandenong Road and some of the other curves proved too treacherous for others. Nice little arrangement of fans in the grandstand, in the grass, in the warm-up track there for the horsies. But this is our front row, and your driver with the best qualifying position does get to start on the traditional racing line. Though it's the outside for turn number 1, maybe it's a little bit grippier. No, sorry, I've got that the wrong way around. Sam Chapman's on the inside in the grey car, and it's John Merritt in the Pulse Tuning Echuca Toyota red and yellow Ronald McDonald machine around the outside there as our front row. 5-second warning. Race 1, 20 minutes. Soon to get underway. The clock counts down. The green flag is held. The drivers revved. Try to anticipate that bite point of the clutch when the green flag drops, as it does now, and in typical Sandown fashion, that driver on the outside, on the racing line, gets a better getaway. Can John Merritt on the cold tyres do anything around the outside of turn number 1 as they jostle for position behind him there? Caleb Ballack trying to carry some momentum around the outside, leap himself up into 3rd, and with good speed too. He backs out early of trying to challenge for 2nd place into the chicane.
Yeah, but have a look at how close they are. People chopping people's noses off everywhere. The checkups, the drive, the timing, and now we're out onto the first straight, and this time it's going to be John Merritt who'll lead us up the hill. Sam Chapman and an extra coat of wax. Is that going to slipstream him through the air just that little bit better? They're going to go too wide, and behind him is Partridge and Ridley. We're going to go side by side. Sorry, my apologies. It's going to be Partridge and Bellack that go side by side up the hill. And what do they got when they crest here and turn down in the end of Dandenong Road?
A little bit of a lift to try to go single file through this bit of the S's, at least on the first lap. John Merritt leads them into Dandenong Road. No one in this group able to make any moves here. Ridley runs a bit wide in that corner, and he's getting swamped. They're 3 wide here alongside him, as in front of him goes James Russell, and alongside him is Cameron Edwards at the moment. The laps go by so quick here at Sandown as they're already into the final complex of corners to finish lap number 1. Drive off this corner so crucial. Matthew Harriott's right up behind Cameron Edwards now, and John Merritt is all the way to the Armco trying to get a good look at the ponies on driver's left.
Yeah, see if he can get a few of those extra ponies down and stapled into his car at the moment. It is going to be Partridge, it is going to be Chapman, it is going to be John Merritt as they run down into turn number 1, and Caleb Ballack is going to be sitting back there with a bucket of popcorn, maybe a nice cold drink, enjoying the action. Oh, it's his turn to buy into it as well. He's going to let Merritt slide in there. So it's all been quite pedestrian, quite settled, and there's been a few position changes up and down the field, but they all want to stay together this race. This is single file racing with a little bit of slipstream, and this has probably been the best I've seen thus far.
They all have a little bit more tyre temperature, a little bit more risk tolerance now. And Stephen Butcher, well, he went into the wall on the outside of turn number 3 on lap 1. Obviously did some damages. He's on the pit lane. Everyone else continues going. This is the view of the leaders, and this is the run you get in the slipstream down the back straight. Sam Chapman goes for the lead. John Merritt had massive speed as well. He can only try to get past one car. They go side by side through here, and he's trying not to make contact with Lee Partridge, who gets shuffled back into third, but then flies an amazing drive off the Dandenong Road to go straight back into second place. James Rosso is looking around, trying to see if his speed advantage off that corner can get him anywhere, but by the time they get to the next corner, it can't, and he drops back in line. Going out wide, though, Sam Chapman, and there's a little bit of a checkup and some contact in the background behind, as Lee Partridge will, for the moment, go to the race lead.
Yeah, it was Cam Edwards that got contact back there, and I have a feeling it was Kyle Ridley that, so it's Cam Edwards and Kyle Ridley who actually made contact back there. It was, I don't think they would have brushed and actually made contact, but yeah, that was close quarters race. Was really, really impressed with how close John Merritt got to Lee Partridge. There was millimeters between those guys then. This is all on for young and old.
Caleb Bellack's been trying to pick and choose what lane will go for him. This is another look on the bottom of the screen with a replay. Live pictures on the top of your screen as Chapman and Merritt go side by side. Doors, does he get a tiny bit of a hit off Ridley? Those two lock wheels, it slows up both of them, and that's what caused that little check up. But there's big dramas at the race lead with further back as well. In the middle pack there with Brendan Nealon and Cameron Dawes. This out of the race lead is pretty dramatic as well, as Merritt tries to sneak his way to the inside.
It was Kyle Ridley involved in it again. I think Kyle's got damaged because he come off of turn number 4 there and started heading down the back straight, and he just sort of went nowhere, and all of a sudden he was drifting further and further back. Could be a hardware failure, may not be able to get his throttle to 100% is another thing, because he did get that touch from Cam Edwards, so there's something not quite right there for Kyle Ridley, because he just had no pace on this second lap.
Got 5 cars in your leading group. Leading the next train, Captain Matthew John Harriott, and he's got Tony Baker, France Estabauer, who we know to be quick sometimes. Sean McKenzie as well with him. John Merritt, as race leader, goes middle of the road. Lee Partridge pulls out, looks to the outside, and Caleb Bellack has a monstrous head of steam, and he'll make just a tiny bit of contact with Lee Partridge on his way through to second place. This will be the replay of what happened with Ridley, Nealon, Dawes. You're right. Ridley just doesn't get off that corner, and everyone else behind in line opens up the throttle, and they just boom, 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 dominoes into him.
You know what? They've just gone through turn 4, the same turn again, and a couple of cars were bottoming out over on the curb. Could you just hear it in the background? I think he's bottomed the car out in the curb, and it's just taken all that momentum out from underneath the car, and that's what's caused the checkout. And it was just sort of a chain reaction from there on out, because I heard a bunch of cars do it again, and there was a bunch of cars slow off of turn 4, so that'll probably be something we'll keep an eye on.
You ever hit a curb hard enough that the car popped out of gear? Yeah, me neither. Matthew Harriott in orange, behind Estabauer in blue, behind Tony Baker, now leading this 6th place group. I'm not sure they're going to catch the leaders the way they're fighting, but it sure looks fun.
Hey man, it's these mid-pack battles. I don't know about you, Dave, but I just don't have the talent to run up front. This is generally where I'm hanging out. And to be perfectly honest, sometimes I forget it's not actually for the lead of the race when I'm battling back here. This is where all the fun certainly happens. Yeah, sure, there's no points on the line. There's no race wins, but none of that. Nah, that just means it's all for glory. It's all for personal glory, personal pride. And, well, Formula Vee drivers, they tend to not like giving up personal pride and glory.
Tony Baker at the lead of this group, trying to break that slipstream a little bit as Harriott and Estabauer go side by side into one. Harriott clears it on the inside. By the look of that curb on the outside of one, a touring car could give it a good whack, but I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't try it in these.
And so I think Scott Carrick actually towed back to the pits on lap number 1, and of course, it's no tow rule in effect without permission, so I think that's effectively ended his race number 1. But yeah, it's not been a pleasant night, I think, for a number of drivers, unfortunately. Drama befalling them on those opening couple laps. We're down to lead 5 at the moment. Lead 5, and then another 5-6 car battle pack for 6 on back. Gee, it's starting to feel a little bit like Formula V.
There it is. That's worked before for Lee Partridge to try to go around the outside there. He'll just keep side by side with John Merritt, and the two of them will go side by side into these final corners. Quick right-hander into a tight left, so it's always sort of debatable which one's actually the inside line. Can go around the outside of the first bit to claim the inside of the next. But it looks like Lee Partridge's positioning has worked very well for himself. Sam Chapman comes up to give Caleb Ballack just a tiny bit of squeeze here, and his momentum is somewhat checked up. Harriet will pull out from behind Tony Baker in the slipstream, but they're going to look to go 3 wide for the race leader. They're going to look to go 4 wide. Caleb Ballack had the option, decided against it. John Merritt now goes to the lead. Sam Chapman was second, gets the wrong side of that curb. He'll have to go side by side with Lee Partridge.
Yeah, so they've all managed to settle themselves up and get themselves sorted right now. Oh, it's just going around in the background. Was that Thortalla? It was Thortalla that went around in the background of that one. And back up at the front of things, I think Tony Baker's actually just caught the wall. Yeah.
Another one of those checkups coming off of turn 4, and indeed looks like he may have gotten squeezed off a little bit, but looking at Thortalla right in behind Estbauer, just in front of Mackenzie, and then looking here, oh, he has a wiggle, he has a moment, and then he almost, he's not aware of Ridley trying to go around the outside of him. The two of them tag wheels, and it pinches them both to graze up against the wall. We are not yet the halfway point of this race, and Sam Chapman leads, but this top group of 5, it's like James Russo in the very, very patient chair.
You know what I'm enjoying? Remember how I've talked about the last couple of rounds of Caleb Ballack? Maybe needed to just tone things down, maybe learn a couple lessons, screw that race brain on. This is maybe the most passive I've seen him, or the smartest. He's not sending every available opportunity, whereas previous Caleb Ballack absolutely would have. So this is a different driver. You've got to evolve at some point. He's learning in a quick way right here. If he learns a lot coming through tonight, 3 wide down into turn number 2. Are you mental? Well, I said they were learning. I said they were taking it calm. That's all changed in a heartbeat.
Very aggressive stuff from Sam Chapman there, and it checks up Caleb Ballack, who almost makes a bit of a contact with James Russo, who wouldn't want that the way he's been racing so far to this point. Into 4th gear and then going uphill. This is where you notice that slipstream gets super strong, and therefore the leader feel the need to wiggle the train around a little bit, heading towards...
Behind these guys, they're actually 3 wide for 6th place again. Well, not anymore. Tony Baker's managed to get through and get the lot of them, so he's back up to 6th place. And they're actually starting to take a little bit of time out of this lead pack as well, because they've been squabbling up at the front. It's calmed down a little bit back here. This is the contact between Caleb Ballack and Sam Chapman as they got through turns 3 and 4. They were a little bit close, tripped over each other a little bit. That's just good hard racing.
Merritt, Partridge, Chapman, Ballack, Russo, off the traditional racing line, but in the try to defend the inside of turn number 1 racing line. Partridge, how much speed has he got to try to swoop around the outside into 1? Absolutely, he's got enough, and he'll go to the race lead with 9 minutes remaining in race number 1.
Did you see? Oh! It's all kicked off again. Kyle Ridley's going to get turned from, I think it was, that wasn't Thortalla. I mean, Matthew Harriet was in behind him, I think, made contact with the rear end of his car. And he says he's powered by coffee. And I think he's on the same vein as you, Dave. He ran off to get a coffee before the race. Maybe that's where all his speed comes from.
Yeah, and then I got there and I decided to turn it into a mocha. So yum, yum, yum. But this is Merritt and Partridge side by side for the lead. And unfortunately, what we've just seen has broken up that pack behind. And maybe even the leaders could break up a little bit here. But they go 3 wide. So I think that gives Ballack and Russo an opportunity to close them down as they look to go 3 wide in that section. Here's what happened to, well, Ridley and Harriet. And yeah, Harriet kind of gets into the rear of Ridley, and then the rear of Ridley kind of gets into the rear of Harriet.
That's unfortunate. We're racing quite close and quite clean up until that point. It was just a couple little bang wheels, couple little bits of being fractionally too deep. That's probably the biggest mistake I'd seen out of that pack. So, yeah, again, big improvement, guys, in terms of the driving set. It's come up a long way here, and maybe it's coming closer to home. Maybe a few more drivers know the track quite a fair bit better. Maybe John Merritt's just got a new engine in that car by the way that he's searching forward. Fastest lap of the race, 28.5. There's a fair bit of speed left over there, Dave.
Maybe pilot John Harriott got his race cars and his planes confused because it's coming in too slow in planes that causes tail strikes.
I see what you did.
There are like 3 people that appreciate that, I'm sure. John Merritt, he sits in second at the moment. Our top 5, well, I jinx it, can't be separated though for the moment.
It'd be interesting because Merritt's back to second place here, so Partridge has nicked this one off.
Estabauer has gone into the Armco at what looks like turn number 4, and was he helped, or as sometimes happens, drivers actually get the grass on that curb on the way in. He's waiting and waiting and waiting to try to get out of that precarious spot, and there's precious little in the way of runoff there between the creek and the horses.
They've done well to fit a track in here over the years, haven't they, in between that lake? So this will tell us, right? Yeah, called it. Got it absolutely bang on. Just over the crest. Nothing you can do. Was that... it wasn't Tony
Sean
Baker?
McKenzie. I think
Sean McKenzie, yeah.
Went and wiped his nose a little bit.
Do you reckon he waved on the way past?
It was maybe a $20 haircut, not a $50 one, that.
This battle for the lead actually is heating up. I think these guys are actually just waiting a little bit there because I think they recognise that either they've got to be organised or Merritt and Partridge are going to nick off down the road with the race win, and then it's going to be on for third place. So they've done really, really well. Bellac fell back to just about a second out. He's just about lost the draft. They worked together. The guys up ahead went 3 wide, straight back in. So it's been really level-headed racing here, really smart racing, and it's given them all a shot as we go into the final 10 minutes. 5 minutes nearly even. 6 minutes to go.
Yeah, all of these races to time. This is Sean McKenzie's nose.
Not even a kiss.
I know. No, he got his nose hairs trimmed for sure. This is side by side for the race lead. John Merritt's going to have the inside at the end of the straight here. When they go side by side like this, whoever's in third really starts to carry some speed in, and Sam Chapman just sits in behind. Bellac still in that 4th, like you mentioned. He almost gets a little tap on the rear crash structure from James Rosso.
No, but what I did see really well done there from Caleb was he actually recognised that Russo was actually probably in a little bit hot, turned down, gave him the space to come in hot, and that meant that both of them had kicked on in this race. So that was actually really, really good use of the mirrors, really good race awareness there from Caleb. Otherwise, I think both of those guys would be squabbling for maybe back in that second pack now. So really good awareness, really good adjustment.
Bellac maybe picked up a little bit of damage from that earlier because he doesn't seem to quite have the straight line speed. Even James Rosso's thinking, can I get around this? As he sets the fastest lap of the race. Very, very nice. They're still picking up some speed. It's a track temperature of 40 Celsius, which is don't walk your dog on pavement temperature.
It's only about how hot you want your cup of tea. 40 to 50 Celsius, in about that range. If you can sit it down on the pavement, keep it warm, that's just about perfect. No, I agree with you. Watching Caleb Bellac's straight line speed over the last couple laps, yeah, I would estimate that he's got some sort of nose cone damage or there's something wrong in the front end of this car. He's holding station. He's able to hold station, but that's really about it. That's what the inside of the nose cone of a Formula V looks like. Yep, there you go. Perfect. Point demonstrated.
It's got a little ouchie on it, and there could be some more elsewhere. Maybe the toe got knocked around a little bit, scrubbing a little bit extra. All those little things just cost you a tiny bit of performance in what are otherwise incredibly equal race cars.
You know, I learned something today about the Formula Vee on iRacing, Dave. It was actually modelled off, I'm not 100% certain whose Formula V it was, but it was modelled off one of the iRacing head honchos or employees' Formula V cars. And in actual fact, when they scanned the car, they actually scanned in all the dimples, the dings, all of the racing wear and tear that was on that car at that point in time. So the cars that are in iRacing are a race-worn and race-tried and true cars. So there you go.
There you have it. Some people are buying new Formula Vs. Some of them, gosh, have been around same chassis racing since the 70s and 80s. And, they've seen many owners, many tracks, and probably a couple of scuffs like Caleb Bellac has got.
maybe a few replacement nose cones, probably more than a few suspension arms, definitely several tyres, and yeah, they're still older than you and I, Dave. That's the testament to the tried and true formula of Formula V.
Sam Chapman finds just one car width to try to sneak between the middle and slot the gap between John Merritt and Lee Partridge and go through up into the lead of the race, with time starting to tick down. By all accounts, at sort of 90-second lap times. It will be 2 laps to go at the end of this one. So if you are Caleb Ballack and able to make some moves with your damaged car, if you're James Rosso and you've been sitting on that kitchen timer just waiting for a sign, I think this is it right now. 2 to go.
Yeah, that egg timer, I think, is well and truly about to pop. I said, you can't learn your racecraft without getting it wrong a few times. You can't bake a cake without breaking a few eggs. And, well, the baking's just about done, boys. It's time to kick on. They're going to go forward. They're thinking about it.
They're going to be side by side, 2 deep on their way between turn 1 and turn 2 on that little short shoot. James Rosso wants to make a move, but there's nowhere to go when it's a rolling roadblock. Dandenong Road traffic in front of him. Sam Chapman might get a really good run off of turn 4 there, but even that couple of car lengths that he manages to avail himself of will evaporate very, very quickly once everyone shifts up into 4th gear, into the top gear, and starts slamming into that wall of air, and anyone with a draft really, really gets to show it. This is Rosso from 5th, and he's decided it's time to take that pasta off the burner and give it a strain.
Yeah, but have a look at that. Really said to me, yes, absolutely, Caleb Ballack has got damage because he had Merritt in behind him and he couldn't even hold even. As soon as Merritt pulled out, Merritt kept going even though Ballack had the draft. So yes, Ballack is struggling. So this is a damaged race car managing to hold himself into the top 5 and even defend and make overtakes. So he's made one place, then lost it on this lap. So he's doing a really, really good job just to stay with these guys, let alone put pressure on them. 1 to go, it's anyone's game.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Within 1 minute left. That's the last lap signal. And Sam Chapman from driver's inside line back across to the outside. He's got speed to look to challenge him. Caleb Ballack is hoping to have some late defensive move from Sam Chapman. And of course, we're going to go 4 wide, 5 wide into turn number 1. But John Merritt's position from the middle of the road lets him carry a lot of speed in and then claim the inside for turn number 2. But Chapman will have speed to swoop right round the outside of him. And they touch behind and it sends Caleb Ballack spinning. There might be damage for Lee Partridge as he also spins out. James Rosso's patience will be rewarded, continuing through into 3rd place, but he drops out of the lead, which is now a duel, mano a mano, Sam Chapman versus John Merritt for the first race win at Sandown.
Yeah, and that one was all a result of Caleb Ballack turning in from the outside of the track. Thought they were too wide. There was a wheel stuck down the inside from James Russo on Lee Partridge. And that's all it was. There was no way that Caleb Ballack would have actually had visibility to know that they were 3 wide at the turn-in point there. He's turned in 2 wide, and now John Merritt's got control of this race.
Between here and the end of the lap, where can you pass? I don't think the slipstream's going to kick in off the final corner to the checkered flag, but can you stick a move between here and the final chicane? John Merritt, which way does he want to go? Sam Chapman's going to look for a good exit, but I think John Merritt's positioned best. He uses all of the curb and then some. Point it in a straight line to where the checkered flag is, and it does come up in time for John Merritt to take race win number 1, Sam Chapman 2nd, and James Russo joins them on the podium.
Yeah, good race from Russo. Really, really enjoyed that one from James. Oh, is that Esteban in the background that's going around? No, Jordan Bialik, one of the other blue cars. There's just about 2 of them in the server, and Jordan's
white
gone
with
around.
Blue nose and blue with white nose. They've traded.
Yeah, it's going to be Esteban and Thortalla who go head-to-head on the run down to the line. Both of these guys have had spin this race. Both of them have not had the cleanest worth of races, so it will be Esteban that gets home in front of Tulla for your top 10.
What about the rest of the field? Jordan Bialik, Cameron Edwards, Brandon Neal, and Stephen Butcher still to cross the line, taking a look at the last lap battle between the leaders. Oh, I mean, Partridge is sandwiched there and really little he can do. And as he comes down off the curb, it spins up. Rousseau goes through into 3rd.
That's a tough one. Like I said, there's just a nose stuck in there. That's a tough one. Would you think, Dave, that he should have expected to be 3 wide at the entry to turn 3? I don't think so. I think that's one where I really think that Russo maybe should have backed out a fraction earlier.
Let's look quickly at the results of race number 1, because they jump pretty quickly into race number 2. John Merritt from Sam Chapman and James Russo as the top 3 there. Caleb Ballack scoring some very important points with what looked like a damaged car. Tony Baker, Kyle Ridley, Sean McKenzie, Matthew Harriott, Franz Estebauer, and Thor Tuller as the top 10. Other cars finishing on the lead lap. Cameron Dawes, Brody Watts, Patrick Harding, Jordan Ballack, and Cameron Edwards, Lee Partridge actually scored kind of 1 lap down there, but somehow, at least for the moment, ahead of Brendan Nealon, Stephen Butcher, and Scott Craig as a DNF. Race number 2 is a top 20 invert, and that sends Nathan Allen to the pole position for the second of 3 races. Lee Partridge, I don't think is going to be starting out of that third, but this is a chance at redemption for some of the drivers that got crashed out of race number 1, like Brendan Nealon, like some others that you see here, Jordan Bielak even, for example, and it means that that battle we've just seen for the race lead will be starting all the way at the back for another 20-lap race number 2.
Yeah, but look at the opportunity that Scott Craig's going to have from the front row. The grid is off on his own, and one more time with 1 race left before us. There's going to be a run down to turn 1. Caleb Ballack's got a terrible start at the back end of the field, and there's been a couple guys who've already jumped through on him, and have a look at them as they feed down to turn 1. Ridley's in there in a really nice spot. He'll have an opportunity in this race as well.
So 18 cars taking the start of race number 2 here, and of course there's a monumental check-up and a spin in turns 2 and 3. Matthew Harriott is facing backwards, and now he is stone dead last. Big spin going until he gets on the grass and just plain wants to understeer into a drainage ditch out there. I think the drainage has been changed more times than the track layout has around here. Stephen Butcher leads for the moment. You can see some teammates there as Tony Baker and Brendan Nealon are side-by-side 9th and 10th. And up front, Cameron Edwards, also a driver, making some big moves, now up into 2nd, not far away from challenging for the race lead. Oh no, another lap 1 heartbreak for Scott Craig. And there's a big offs at Dandenong Road.
Multiple leaders from the previous race caught in that one. Bellack's in it. I believe John Merritt's in it. Brendan Nealon's had an incident again. Brody Watts is at the back end of the field as well. There'll be a few cars, I think, coming to pit lane. There's another incident further down as well. Tony Baker. Tony Baker is parked across the track, and out and in the weeds will be Cam Edwards. No, sorry, it's James Russo. I believe it was actually out in the weeds coming out of the last corners. So didn't take long in race number 2 for it all to kick off.
Absolutely insane scenes in lap number 1. Every single corner, drivers off, cars damaged. Stephen Butcher's got huge and monumental damage. Scott Craig, Stephen Butcher leads. Cameron Dawes and Thor Tuller 2nd and 3rd. Kyle Ridley, Patrick Harding, Sean McKenzie. That's kind of the group we're looking at here. Getting a bit wide, and also getting a bit wide while Franz Estebauer has been looped around. Sean McKenzie will pick up another spot there off of Patrick Harding. Got wide, and I mean, it's already happening, isn't it?
Yeah, this will be interesting to have a look at what's going on for Tony Baker, because he crossed over 3 wide down through here. Yeah, that's on Tony. He's just come across. He's just squeezed a little bit too much. There was just perfectly enough room for them to go 3 wide through there, but not when they're spaced out like they were. He just pinched him a little bit too quickly.
So, the racing continues. Butcher managing to hold on to a little bit of a lead there. McKenzie can battle his way forward. Still unable to shake Patrick Harding, who he got past at turn 3 not all that long ago. Decent distance up the road to the next car for position, and Kyle Ridley in 4th. You can see Ballack just behind them there, but you saw on screen a penalty potentially, well, not potentially, I think assuredly coming his way.
Yeah, so there'll be a few bits and pieces to deal with. That penalty that's actually come through for Caleb Ballack, who's actually from the last lap of the previous race, is what that penalty is actually for. I think there's still a car beached up in the final sector as well.
Yeah, Scott Craig went off in the S's on that one and is still out there. Got Bialek side by side with John Merritt, and side by side with Brody Watts. The speed that he's got down the inside there.
You know, this entire field's just broken up now. I mean, Butcher's doing a really, really good job to keep himself clean at the front. Cam Dawes is doing his job as well, and Thor Tuller, they're all in a really, really nice little racing pack up at the front. So Patrick Harding slow off the Dandenong Road as well. So going to Formula V action in race number 2, and I'll tell you what, Caleb Bellock's actually going to dive in and get that penalty out of the way, and this will be what happened down the other end.
For Patrick Harding, as he dropped back a couple spots there. It's not Formula V if the packs don't form up, though. And so now, all of a sudden, with the battling we saw between John Merritt and Brody Watts, there's a couple of other cars starting to line up behind them. Some quick guys like Jordan Bialek, Brendan Nealon, of course, Sam Chapman, and Patrick Harding joined at the back of that train after his little adventure. Now, Esther Bauer and Harriet, who was dead last right at the start of this race, but then, I guess, avoided some of the bigger pile-ups, hopefully because of that.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit, isn't it? I mean, if you can get that clean run through, I mean, this is a really good opportunity for Thor Tuller and Cam Dales to get themselves a really good round result as well. So they're starting to close in on Stephen Butcher. Be interesting to see how hard Stephen Butcher actually fights this one. I reckon he might just tag on and let these guys pull him along.
So Butcher has dropped back just a tiny bit and now into grasp at Dawes and Tuller. Butcher taking a little bit more of the curb on the way in while most other drivers stay off it. Kind of interesting to see. Kyle Ridley has pulled time out of all of them on the last lap as well, so he's just lurking back there in fourth.
Yeah, look at Kyle Ridley. He's going to range up on these guys quite quickly as well. Cam Edwards is actually 9 seconds back at this point in time, and he's still in with a chance. And Sean McKenzie as well is starting to come his way forward. Brody Watts is in a really interesting spot as well. John Merritt, after all that chaos back there on lap number 1, and he was involved in it, seems to actually be kicking on quite well. So this isn't all is lost yet for John Merritt. There's still an opportunity here for him to score a bunch of points, particularly with Caleb Bellock having an off night in race number 2.
And there's still one more race to come after this, and your finishing order here sets your grid for race number 3. Every position you pick off now is positions you don't have to in that final race as well. So you move forward through the field, and you won't lose that for the next race either.
Change for the lead as Cam Dawes is actually going to go. Sorry, my apologies. I believe it was Cam Dawes who gets down and takes control of that one. And keep your eyes on Kyle Ridley. He's coming. That gap to the race leaders down to 2.9 seconds. That was out over 3.5 seconds. So Ridley is coming, and I believe there's going to be more than enough time for him to get here. It's just whether or not he can pull away, or whether or not Cam Dawes and Thor Tuller can start to do something about this. Whether or not they can pull that margin, and because they're going to need to, because the pace that Ridley's coming at.
Yeah, no doubt. There's still a lot of time in this race, and you just know whenever the drivers in front of you start fighting that you're going to reel them in, and you just know when there's 3 drivers within half a second of the lead that eventually they're going to start fighting. Ridley's not really even going to have to wait for that, the way that he's going and the pace that he has. The Dawes might be able to lead this train a little bit quicker than Butcher could, so maybe that makes the job just a tiny bit harder for Ridley.
But he's down to under 2.4 seconds to the race lead. But crucially, he's actually down to about 1.7 seconds or so down back to Stephen Butcher. So even though they've got to the lead and they can push on maybe a little bit quicker, Ridley's actually a fair bit closer to these guys because they had to get that overtake done. I think he's actually in that draft now.
Either is now or he might be shortly. This with third place, Steve Butcher led a handful of laps here. Now behind Thortalla and Cameron Dawes. And this is the Jaws music position for Kyle Ridley. Hunting them down. He's not afraid of that curb.
But have a look at the angle he took coming in at that second last corner curve, though, Dave. I think that's the critical thing. He lined the car up, he pointed the car straight, and he unwound the wheel as he went across that curb. That's the critical factor. He made sure that it was a nice, clean bounce, that the car wasn't oscillating over those curbs as much as possible. That's the line. You've either got to be on that line or you've got to be completely and utterly off the curb. Those are the only two real lines for that last section.
Busy down the pit straight as Sam Chapman and John Merritt battle. Sean McKenzie and Brody Watts battle. Jordan Bielak and Brennan Nealon try to stay with them in what's currently a battle for 6th. Not sure it stands a whole lot of chance of maybe catching Cameron Edwards. Kyle Ridley has caught the lead in train, so battle's still forming up now after the chaos of lap number 1.
It's important to keep an eye on those trains up and down the field. Ridley's in. He's absolutely getting a mega toe on these guys now, as these guys are actually in a battle for it. Tuller now thinks he's got the pace to punch out ahead. And Cam Dawes doesn't fight him too much on that one, so it'll be interesting to see how this all works itself out. Cam Edwards, in the meantime, has actually taken some margin out of this race lead as well. Sam Chapman's holding, set the fastest lap of the race thus far. I have a feeling Kyle Ridley's about to blow that one out of the water.
Was just in position to get a good toe down the back straight, but not impeded by anyone anywhere yet, taking all of his own lines, braking at his own points, and now on the run to the line in a really good slipstream. 27? Can we get a 127? No. 128.7. He's got to find a little bit more to set the lap time that I'm crossing my fingers for. Track is cool though.
Yeah, and it's going to continue to come down as well with 4:30 local time within the sim. So that track temp will come down as the racing progresses as well. Have a look at this battle. Brody Watts is tagged into this. You reckon these guys are working together, Dave? See if they can catch the cars up ahead, and they'll wait a little bit longer before they start really squabbling over it? I get the feeling that might actually be what's happening.
Could be still a big ask at this point. It is, as you see here, just underneath 3 seconds to Cameron Edwards, and then 6 seconds from there to the race lead with only a couple of laps left. The lead is not battling too ferociously just yet. Well, I guess it only takes the leaders losing 2 seconds on one lap and 2 seconds on the next, and all of a sudden, Sam Chapman, who has the fastest lap of the race at the moment, could make a big bite out of it.
I think what's the critical thing is, if we have a look, the fastest lap for Thortalla is a 28.7. So realistically, Sam Chapman's fastest lap of the race, if we were to take apples for apples and take their fastest laps for fastest laps, then oh no, what's going on back down here for Patrick Harding?
Well, that corner's been a little bit of his Achilles heel for him. He went off-roading there earlier in the race. Now he's lost his nose cone and damaged the suspension down there with Harriet and Esterbauer behind. They were not anticipating where he ended up braking, and Esterbauer went for a bit of a ride.
Indeed, I think they've actually, that'll be the race done down there for Patrick Harding. I think I just heard race control saying toe granted, so he is out and done with this one. Here comes Kyle Ridley though. Ridley's going to be in a rocket ship when he gets down to the crest of the hill down here at turn number 6.
Well, swoops into third, but then he drops back into line because he doesn't think there's enough track before the turn-in point here to make any more positions. So he sits third for the minute.
Really interesting to watch that overhead shot. Thanks, Jay. Actually behind it. If you actually have a look, where Kyle Ridley's gaining a little bit of time is actually the turn in at turn 6. It was a lot further to the left-hand side of the road. The road sort of banks itself. You can hug that inside. Then he didn't brake as deep, didn't brake as hard all the run down through underneath the bridge at turn number 9. But what he did do is he balanced himself, picked up the throttle nice and early. Same thing through that entire last sector. Focused on his corner exits. That's where he's gaining his time. He's got a lot closer to these guys. And now he's in for an opportunity to nick the lead down here at turn number 1.
you ever going to your gate at the airport and you're walking on the travelator past some people who are walking not on the travelator and you're just blowing past them, but you're both putting in the same amount of effort? That's kind of what that slipstream looks like. It's just so effortless to just, especially from the overhead shot, to just walk past them, pull a couple car lengths, just have a little bit more speed. The fastest travelator in the world is like 20 kilometers an hour.
Man, can I get on that? Can I get a ride, one of those built between me and work every day? That'd make my walking to work every day nice and easy. But in the meantime, battle on for the lead. Ridley's gone and nabbed it. Tuller stuck his nose out, thought about it, and now they're going to watch Kyle Ridley and learn something. And they've got more than enough time to learn something here because they've got 5 minutes left. So they've probably got 2 laps worth of learning. Watch what Kyle Ridley's doing. Watch where he's pulling the speed out. Then try and pull it out last possible moment. And I just can't see Kyle Ridley pulling away from these guys. If I'm Cam Dawes, I'm trying to nick this spot back down at turn number 1 because I want to check Ridley up. I want to give myself an opportunity on the last couple of laps of the race. If I work with him here, that opportunity may disappear.
Sam Chapman, John Merritt, Brody Watts, 6th, 7th, 8th, potentially battling here as Merritt had a look, did nothing with it, sits back in line off the final corner, and they might try to swap on the run down towards turn number 1. Many a position has changed there, but Chapman will just maybe ease him across to one side a little bit, and no worries for John Merritt with that travelator speed advantage, just closing down the gap, looking to the inside, and Brody Watts sitting in place again, would have had the chance to try to leap 2 for 1, but he just goes along with them.
Oh my God, Kyle Ridley just had the save of the century down at turn number 4, was out in the grass, was out in the weeds, managed to hang on to it. So I'm sure we're going to replay that one coming in a few moments. But in the meantime, I agree, this is the place to keep your eyes on. Merritt's gone and nicked it off. What's Chapman going to do? He lost the spot to Merritt in race number 1. He'd be looking to try and get this one back in race number 2. Start a little bit further forwards and ultimately maybe come away with that lead in terms of the points. This is the moment. A little bit too deep, a little bit too early on the throttle. And how has he kept that out of the barrier? Has he kissed it? I think he's kissed it with the rear wheel.
Oh, so close. He might find a little bit of blue paint on his right rear rim at the end of this one, but he holds on to the race lead for the moment. Lost just a little bit of time.
I've done that on a motocross bike, Dave. I've scraped right boot up against the tyre wall because I wasn't going to lift. I wasn't going to lift off of that throttle. I was going to keep that thing pinned. And I'll tell you what, I think Kyle Ridley's going to need exactly what I needed at the end of that race, which was a change of underwear.
I think I scraped a spoiler against the concrete block. Managed to avoid anything else. Kyle Ridley, Thortuller, Cameron Dawes, Stephen Butcher still the top 4 here as Butcher maybe looks around a little bit, and some of the quickest cars on track at the moment are these drivers. Sam Chapman, Brody Watts has gotten up 1 spot, and John Merritt has gone back into 8th, but he knows it's not final until the checkered flag, and a lot can and will happen on the final lap around here. It's not too far away from getting to, with just 3 minutes left in this one.
Yeah, they've settled themselves down, and Ridley's certainly shown that he's got the pace. He's trying to break that toe because, again, it's about setting yourself up for that last race. He just doesn't want anyone harassing, doesn't want anyone haranguing him, doesn't want to lose momentum trying to make sure that there's enough space for 2 Formula V's to get through. And look at the brave. I just rode on board with Thortuller, and I can tell you, did not lift over the crest of that hill. He had that foot flat to the floor. That's bravery. I couldn't do that, Dave. I'm not that good.
John Merritt with the 1 downshift into 3rd gear. Right up behind Sam Chapman. Brody Watts has gotten to 6th, so he's picked them off 1 at a time here in this group. And they're still not that much closer to being able to catch Cameron Edwards or the outright race lead at the moment. With 2 laps to go, crossing the start-finish line now. Barney's reaching for the white flag, but he hasn't pulled it out of the marshal's stand just yet.
Yeah, so 2 laps to go. This will be interesting. This is down to timing now. So Merritt's getting out of this line because he knows he's got to be in position. He knows he can pick these guys as pockets, and he knows he doesn't want to wait for that last lap to be a little bit further up. Didn't want to be in 3rd coming to the white flag. I think he wants to be 2nd out of this pack.
Merritt trying to place himself to defend his track position at the minute. Ahead of Chapman and Watts. futile by the end of the back straight, though. This is the race lead with Kyle Ridley. Thortala's been pretty quick when he's led that group, and you can see Dawes and Butcher have dropped back a little bit, potentially shaping up for a two-way duel here. It's all action on the back straight and towards the S's. Ridley still holds the race lead. Chapman gets into 6th, moving ahead of John Merritt. They're about to start the final lap of the race. Kyle Ridley of the leading 4 has absolutely been the quickest, but when it comes to the final lap, you're not pedaling quickly, you're playing chess.
Yeah, white flag. This will be the opportunity. Who do you think's got this one? Thor's found a little bit of pace. He's closed up a little bit, and the guys behind have actually dropped back. They're nearly out of the draft. In actual fact, I think they are, and that's why Stephen Butcher's going to get down the inside here. And the worst part is, Cam Dawes is probably quicker, but it's in his best interest to maybe let him go, see if he can get that draft and get the job done, maybe steal an extra spot down the back straight. It's a risk, but I reckon it's probably a better risk, because then you're fighting for second, not third.
I think in a 1v1, Ridley can do this against Thortala. He can play the games with him, because if Tuller gets really close here, Ridley can let him by and probably slingshot him again before the end of the straight here. So Ridley, roll out of the throttle, drop back in line, go full power, come back across, see if you can't get him by the end of the straight. Thortala's wise to that, this way, that way. But now Butcher and Dawes might get a bit of a run here. Ridley is looking for that second leapfrog, and he's not going to get it before the crest of the hill, coming down towards the big braking zone at Dandenong Road. Side by side there, 3rd and 4th, Cameron Dawes and Butcher, but a dive at Dandenong Road for Kyle Ridley to try to take the race lead back. Now he's got to defend it to the final chicane. He was so brave on the brakes, made the corner. But now he'll get challenged by Thortala. Merritt, Chapman, Brody Watson, championship contenders have got to get cleanly to the flag here as well, but Ridley comes off the final corner with good enough drive that the checkered flag will come up in time, and his late braking heroics will give him the race win number 2.
Oh, he thought he threw that one away coming off of turn 4. He absolutely thought he'd had it. Sam Chapman has had his pockets picked in 2 races in a row. And indeed, does he even lose the extra spot? No, I think he managed just to barely get that one over. Brody Watts, 79 thousandths of a second, 700ths of a second between those two guys. That's Formula V racing at its finest. But he's had his pockets picked on the last lap by John Merritt. John Merritt must be a master Formula V thief the way that he's driving.
I wonder if it hurt when he fell from heaven. Bellac and Harriet here, and what is that? They are bearing down on a significantly slow Franz Estebauer, and it forced evasive action from Caleb Bellac, and they're going to tangle, and they're going to go upside down across the finish line. Caleb Bellac had his nose nearly slammed against the Armco there.
My word, that was an interesting one. I honestly think that Bellac's trying to take evasive action in multiple different directions all at the same time. I think that's just one of those ones where they've just misjudged which direction they're going in. But that was a lot better than I was expecting that one to be. It was a phenomenal drive from Kyle Ridley, and I guarantee you, he thought he'd throw. His heart sank through his mouth, and then he gathered it back up again and managed to send it back down the inside. That was bravery, and well done to Thortala for recognizing it was coming and then still trying to get the switch back. And Kyle gave him a little bit of extra space just because of that down at the second last corner. Good racing, guys.
Yeah. Absolutely, and as you see them here, that will make the grid order for the final race of the evening not too far away. So for Kyle Ridley, great opportunity to continue capitalizing here. This will start from the front row and see the top 10 all the way past John Merritt, Sam Chapman, Brody Watts, Sean McKenzie, and Jordan Bielak. And in the final group of drivers, some tales of woe here: Brendan Nealon, James Russo, Tony Baker, but controversial little finish there. Franz Estebauer and Caleb Bellac skidding across the checkered flag on his lid with Matthew Harriet just behind. We'll take a look at it here and okay. Well, Bellac thought he had a lane to one side there, and he had maybe 7/8 of a Formula V, and then he has some overlap here down the inside, and again gets given no room. and Harriet's trying to see if he can pick both of them on the way to the line. And you tell me who's transformed across the line first there, because between Belak and Harriet, the timing thinks that there were 20 thousandths somehow in the favor of Belak, but you tell me about that one. We'll take a break here with SimSpeed TV coverage, and in a couple of minutes, we return with the final race of Formula Vee National Esports Cup from Sandown Motor Raceway.
It's motorsport, but not as you know it. Test yourself and your everyday road car. Safe, affordable, but most of all, fun. And all you need is your daily driver. Experience the thrill of a sprint day. Race against the clock at a hill climb. Or test your reflexes with an auto test. It takes just 3 simple steps to get started. Get on the start line. Search Motorsport Australia Daily Driver today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
We're ready now for the final race of the evening in Formula Vee National Esports Cup. And thank you to the series supporters. Southern Cross Esports, VRace Experience, Echuca Toyota, Giant Mandurah. This is an official Motorsport Australia Esports Championship. And there is one race left of the evening. They'll line up on the grid as they just finished race number 2.
Yeah, and that means we're going to have Kyle Ridley off of P number 1. Look for him to push out nice and early as well. Off of, alongside of him with Thor Tuller, Cam Dawes, Stephen Butcher, Cam Edwards and John Merritt, Sam Chapman and Brodie Watts. That'll be an interesting one to watch those 3 cut their way through. Sean McKenzie and Jordan Bialek are going to round out your top 10.
Absolutely. Brendan Neal and James Rosso behind that. Tony Baker, Frances Tabau, Caleb Belak, Matthew Harriet, Patrick Harding, Scott Craig as well. I think other 18 cars we're going to see for this final race. Most all of them on the grid. You do start pretty far down the straight here, relatively close to turn number 1.
Well, engines are going to rise here, Dave. Race number 3. And for the final time tonight, the run down to turn number 1. Who's got the guts? I'm really keen to see what some of these guys at the back end of the field have got. See if they can push their way through in race number 3. The guys have had a hard night. But who's got the lead? Yeah, you better believe it's Kyle Ridley.
These cars can be super sketchy, super difficult over the curbs on cold tyres, and Sam Chapman goes for a spin, but he'll keep it off any of the walls as he manages to not get collected by any of the other drivers coming through off the race start there. In the tight confines of turns 2, 3, 4, we know that wall on the exit of turn 4 comes up oh so close if you're carrying all your speed through, and Patrick Harding looks like he might have caught that curb wrong that time through. Again, no further contact from that based on where he was in the field. This is the lead heading down towards the S's. Kyle Ridley leading on the racing line. Thortulla looks like he's going to play along for the moment in second. John Merritt has made some big gains already on this lap. He's there in fourth, having started in sixth. Maybe could have gone to third if he was more ambitious, but he knows the way that these Formula V's races, there are still heaps of opportunities.
Is that James Russo on the outside right there, just going right around the outside? Tony Baker, I think it was in there and around it. Belak's off the road as they run off of the end of Dandenong Road, and race number 2 starting to break itself up. And if these guys don't get themselves sorted, get in with the program and get attached to that front group, they're going to disappear real quick.
They spread out a little bit initially off the first lap. Now they all close up again. Drivers pulling out of the slipstream, looking to go to the race lead. John Merritt's got massive speed. He was fourth coming onto the straight. As he heads down towards turn number 1, he will take the race lead. Skillful timing, skillful driving from John Merritt.
Yeah, and now he's going to try and absolutely push clear at the front end of this thing. And keep your eyes on this battle pack back here. Baker, Russo, Belak, all of these guys will be keen to jump to the front of it. Does that Esteban go around again? He just cannot get any luck whatsoever here tonight from Sandown.
And Bialek as well, the two of them tangled wheels in turns 2 and 3. Kyle Ridley having been relegated from the race lead, now battling over second place here pretty aggressively with Thortulla. John Merritt's leading him one way, leading the other, and he looks like he'll still lead by the end of the straight. He's got Cameron Dawes and Stephen Butcher going side by side there as well. Dawes will hold on to his spot, and Belak and Tony Baker, they got oh so close in the final corner at the end of last lap. Now both of them in drama on the back straight.
Now they're going to keep going on down as well as they kick on in this race. Check them. Oh! There's nothing. I'm wondering whether or not Baker was looking to try and slot back in behind and didn't recognize that he had Belak right underneath him. Have a look at Ridley, though. Ridley's getting really aggressive. I'll be interested to see if he's actually going to pull out here.
Merritt still leads from Ridley and Tulla. Some other big gainers in this group up front. Brodie Watts, 2 positions gained off the race so far. Kenzie in 8th, the tail of this train as it snakes down the back straight between the sound barriers and between the horse track.
Now, keep your eyes on Thortulla. Is he going to have a crack at this one? He might. He might just try and break these guys up, because if they keep working together, they're in trouble. But Dawes is going with them as well. And keep your eyes further back for Butcher and Watts. Unfortunately, it's been a rough old night, though, for Sam Chapman, because he's just not gotten anything in the way of a good run in this final race. So it was looking good. It was looking like I was looking to see if he might finally be able to get it done on John Merritt, but it's just not to be tonight.
At the final corner, just 15 minutes of racing left for the National Formula Vee Esports Cup round at did I say Shannon Speed Series? What? But I'm thinking about that because they're coming here to Sandown in not too long. All the way to drivers right there. Like, defense, what's the opposite of defensive? Offering up the inside totally, John Merritt, to anyone who's willing to take it. And Ridley, Tulla, Cameron Dawes won't. They know John Merritt's one of the quickest Formula V drivers there are. And they'll follow him and hope he'll tow them away from this slightly split group with Brodie Watts, Stephen Butcher, Cameron Edwards, and Sean McKenzie from fifth on back.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to keep our eyes forward and see who's actually going to be a little bit smart about this one. Have a look, McKenzie's actually racing. They're racing a little bit harder back here. And then it's the car that's actually ahead of these guys, which I think is what, Brody Watts? Yeah, Brody Watts. So if Tuller drops out of this lead group, there's a chance that that Brody might start to pull his way back forwards. But whilst ever John Merritt's pulling the way, like you've got to turn perfect lap times. If Kyle Ridley gets aggressive here and starts to break this out, this could be a 5-way battle for the first place. I think Kyle's got his race brain engaged tonight. I think he's just working with John. He's happy to sit here for the next 10 minutes or so, and then he'll crack on.
Less than a second between our top 4 at the moment. Again, John Merritt not weaving, not offering any defense, and Kyle Ridley not offering any attack. As they look further down the train at drivers' momentum, nothing happening in the top 4. Sean McKenzie and Cameron Edwards battle in towards turn number 1 here. McKenzie looks like he'll hold his position, gets that far side of the curb and gets back onto the racetrack for turns 2 and 3.
Yeah. Have a look at it from McKenzie. He's looking good, actually. This is probably one of the better drives that we've actually started to see out of Sean McKenzie. And look at him closing up as well. So Watts is falling back off of that lead group, but so is Cam Dawes. Cam Dawes is out he was out a half a second, 0.3 of a second now. He's going to keep closing as they run up the hill here. But I reckon Dawes is slowly going to drift out. If he makes a single mistake, Dawes will drop out of this lead group, and that's going to give these guys in behind every opportunity to potentially get back there. But they've got to run perfect laps to do it.
You know, Watts can be pretty quick, but it's tough to get cooperation out of 4 drivers in a group like this. And
hang on. John Merritt's just had a massive moment coming through the final chicane. He was just about sideways to the racing line. He's managed to hang on to it, but that's now going to change everything up at the front. Now if you thought, Tully, do you pull the trigger? If Cam Dawes, why not? Let's grab a couple spots here, boys.
still just 2 lines at the moment. John Merritt and the rest of them were looking down the inside. Dawes looks against it and then thinks back about it again. John Merritt goes back and forth. Kyle Ridley goes back into the lead of the race. This is what happened for him. Just a little too much curb there, mayhaps.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what's going on there, but at least he's settled back in here, and Watts has closed. That margin back to Brody Watts is now down out to about 1.6 seconds as they come off of turn 4, and the guys in behind are continuing to work together. So I don't know. It's rare that we see one mistake out of John Merritt. If we see a second mistake out of John Merritt, all of a sudden we could end up with an 8-way battle for the race lead in race number 3.
He gets 1, he gets 2, he's up into second place, and then he rolls out of the throttle a little bit into the braking zone here. Tucks a very, very neat little apex with a good exit, and he's right in position behind the race leader, Kyle Ridley. And Watts in 5th's been pretty consistent. He only needs to find about 1 second, and that group are right back up with us here. McKenzie and Edwards, though, going to cost themselves a little bit of time back there in 6th and 7th. You need another moment like what we saw for John Merritt for that next group to really stand a chance, but they are just there.
Well, Kyle Ridley had a moment as they come out and onto the straight, and John Merritt actually hasn't capitalised on it. And have a look at Dawes, just send it down the inside. Well, if we're going to get anything of 8-way battle for the lead, it's going to need something like Cam Dawes' bravery. Send it, son. Go on for it. We want to see it here in the commentary booth.
Like, you're not going to pass. You're not going to pass. All right, I'll send it. I'll send it into turn 1. I won't roll out a throttle. I'll keep it pinned and I'll pull out a line. That's what Cameron Dawes did, and it took him all the way to second place. Now on board with Cam Edwards behind Sean McKenzie. It's behind Brody Watts. He's now a little further away from the race leaders.
Check this out. Kyle Ridley is offering every little bit of support he can possibly give to Cam Dawes. He wants Cam Dawes to do what he just did again and again and again. I think Kyle Ridley's found himself an ally.
Oh, but now he runs wide out there. It was a problem for him at turn 4. He carried in too much speed. It's a problem for him now at Dandenong Road. He carried in a little bit too much speed. Nothing in the leading pack here this time.
wouldn't surprise me to see John Merritt get aggressive here and take this race lead back and try and hang on to it. I reckon he's better off in this situation leading from the front. I don't reckon he wants to mess around too much because that Brodie Watts he's starting to get a little bit bigger in that rearview mirror.
What can John Merritt do from this position? Slot back in to second place behind Carl Ridley, leading group of 4 navigate turn number 1 yet again. How's the last lap time for Brodie Watts? A little bit quicker than the leaders, but critically also significantly quicker than Thortalla, which is really the gap that needs closing. 4th through to 5th there, currently sitting at 1.7 seconds. Loaded Butcher get a little bit of a ride across the turn 4 exit curve there that time.
And that was the moment, that was one of the moments we saw earlier on in the race that really sent it. I've seen a lot of mistakes from Kyle Ridley, just trying to pick up that throttle, trying to carry too much momentum in and out. He's scrubbing tyres, understeering a lot on the corner exits, which has been his big factor here tonight. And it nearly cost him a race win. So again, that's the reasoning why I think John Merritt's going to go for it. Dave, what do you think? Race car drivers, do they want to race? You bet they do.
They do, but they also want to win, and if they think that means waiting until lap 2 or 3, well, they'll wait very, very impatiently and have their fingernails left. They'll try. I think Edwards got past Mackenzie at the end of the back straight that time around, but it doesn't affect Brodie Watts, whose speed is critical for whether this is a 4 or an 8-way fight for the race win in about 6 laps time, or 8 minutes 10 seconds.
They're stringing out back down there as well. Butcher's starting to fall off the back end of that pack, so he's got to get a little bit of a hurry on, just barely into it. James Russo's the next driver down. He's a very, very long way back, so unfortunately his race will probably finish about where it is in P9 at this point in time, but hey, points. I really enjoyed his race 1 from James Russo as well. He did so well in that first race.
One of the corners has been a danger zone for Kyle Ridley. He has no dramas through turn 4 this time. But his biggest rival at this point isn't the curbs or the track limits or the walls. It's John Merritt just making sure he moves about in his mirrors, not actually carrying the momentum to try to affect the pass that time. But this time he might. It kicks off behind as well, and then Merritt just rolls out of the throttle and sits in second. There's games afoot, and I can't tell you if I understand the rules at all.
Cam Dawes is getting brave, and now he's going to make the mistake and obviously drop back. But he got brave there again. He just put some pressure on John Merritt. I don't know to tell you whether or not Cam Dawes is actually trying to play mind games with John Merritt. John Merritt tends to play the better mind games, but it's interesting to see somebody else have a go at John and really ask questions of him. This has been the difference this season. No one's really asked all those questions. It's been John Merritt setting the cards up, laying them down and going, right, boys, there's a royal flush under here and you're all going to play according to that royal flush. I want to see somebody just mess with him a little bit. And have a look at the lap time out of Sean McKenzie. Right time to do it.
There we go. Finally, I get my 1 minute 27, but not quite where I was expecting it. In this battle here over 6th and 7th, he must have got a monstrous slipstream off Cam Edwards, who I'm sure was getting a little bit of a toe off Brodie Watts as well, who is giving it everything he's got to try to catch the leading group. Elsewhere, Sam Chapman, Brendan Neal and Jordan Bialek here 11th, 12th and 13th.
These guys are having a fair bit of fun back down in here as well. And Sam's still out there. He's still turning laps. He's still making sure that he picks up the points, and that's the critical thing as well. Yeah, it's just stretch at 2 seconds though. But this will be where Brodie Watts is critically strong because he's not under threat. He's not having to lift for anyone else. He's driving his own race. He's driving his own lines.
Fifth, all of the curb and then some, but it doesn't trouble the Samba line that is 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the moment. 4 laps to go this time around, getting within the final 5 minutes, and it's just been this same tantalizing distance for the group in 5th. Almost all race, hoping, looking, trying to catch the top 4.
Yeah, where's the opportunity? Who's got the opportunity? Cam Edwards is going to dip out and show the nose to Sean McKenzie this time by. And he was just letting him have it. They're playing nice back there. I get the feeling Cam Edwards and Sean Mackenzie have a fair bit of respect for each other, just the way they're playing. They're giving each other heaps of room. If you've got the run, sir, you may as well take it. Oh, why, thank you, sir. Let's push on. Is that just me, or is that Brodie Watts about to tag into the draft of Cam Dawes? And Cam Dawes, I think, has dropped that. Oh, he's just in. He's just barely in that draft.
A lot happening there. Horrible ride off the curb on the exit of turn 4 for Brodie Watts. Cost him all of his time. So close to picking up the slipstream, and he's lost it. And he's lost 5th place as well. Not only to Cameron Dawes, but now to Sean Mackenzie. Those two go side by side. Here it is, trying to get as much speed as possible, but the tail kicks out a little bit in the middle of the corner, and then he gets sideways and has to gather it up off the final curb. Maybe drives a nail into the coffin of those chances and makes it a 3-way fight for the race lead now. Time starting to run out. Kyle Ridley, yet again, scored the race leader, but he knows at some point John Merritt will think about pulling that trigger.
Or did I say that Sean Mackenzie and Cam Edwards are really nice and respectful to each other? I think most of those guys have actually finally decided, now there's 3 minutes left on the clock, it's time to push on. We're actually going to really squabble for it. They're starting to go side by side in a lot of places. Mackenzie had a huge moment as well, coming over the crest of the hill, turn 6 and turning down. Otherwise, he would have had P5, and Brodie Watts would have had to fight him for it, but that's why Watts has actually punched back out and clear. So Watts will have a... I think 4th place is the best he can do. I think they're out of time here. So it'll just be down pressing on, grab P4 and see how far forward he can get. I just don't see him getting a podium from here.
The time is not now for John Merritt as he sits in 2nd behind Kyle Ridley. Thortalla also playing the same game. Still just holding on to that 4th, but I'm not sure he's with any chance of contention at the moment, the way that they're going. Just letting Kyle Ridley run his lines, run his pace. He's got to do a lot to try to match his clean air speed in clean air without a draft yourself.
Does he pull out though? That's the critical thing, because obviously Kyle Ridley's got the pace to go with him. He's got the pace to win races. We've seen that now. Does he try and take it now and just play a little bit with Kyle? Kyle obviously knows. Kyle's reading. Kyle's been watching, and he'll be aware. And then if you Thortalla, why not? Why not just go and rob it off of John Merritt? Why not spoil the party? Do something funky. Get in there, rattle a few cages. You never know what race car drivers will do once you rattle that cage.
Sometimes you mess with the horns and you get the devil. I don't know what that means, but it sounds maybe appropriate for the final 2 laps of Formula Vee racing at Sandown that has been at times messy, but at other times intensely strategical and thrilling. Chapman and Harriet will have 2 laps to settle who's going to finish inside of the top 10 in this one. Stand a very slim chance of making up another 10 seconds in 2 laps to get James Russo in 9th. Ridley still leads. Still John Merritt bides his time.
Brodie Watts didn't pull the trigger on Cam Dawes that time either. He actually had a run, had an opportunity to. So Watts is biding his time, and he's making sure he pulls the trigger at the right possible moment. But now from Thortalla, if I'm in Thortalla's shoes, I'm going to have a crack here. I'm going to try and nick the race lead going out into turn number 1 and just see what they do.
Oh, now Ridley makes a little bit of a reaction as we start the final lap of the final race from Sandown, knowing that the Merritt pressure will be inevitable. And if not Merritt, maybe Tuller as well. Behind, it's also kicking off between, well, everyone. Watts and Dawes, and Edwards and Mackenzie, and even Stephen Butcher potentially. So Brodie Watts gets himself back up into 4th place. Cameron Dawes having dropped off the leading group that is now just Kyle Ridley, John Merritt and Thortalla.
There's actually a car on the inside there, which is Patrick Harding. He managed to get back out there, managed to get back out in the race, and got himself out of the way at the perfect possible time. He's actually done a really, really good job here. And here goes Merritt.
He pulls to the left-hand side of the track to give himself the inside after the crest and into the S's. Thortalla, though, can pick and choose the slipstream. He's got massive speed. He'll send it 3 wide for the race lead on the final lap with Merritt on the inside. Ridley in the middle, and Tuller trying to go the long way around the outside. It will end in disaster as his rear wheel gets tagged as he turns down on the driver in the middle, and there goes Thor Tuller's chances, and he'll drop some position. It's just Merritt and Ridley now for the race win. Ridley, winner of race number 2, will struggle now to go back-to-back as John Merritt leads them to the final chicane. Both of them love to gobble up that curb. They take the same line. Ridley sends a speculative dive, but can you pass from there? No, you can't. And John Merritt will take race win number 3 from Kyle Ridley. Looks like Dawes might be able to join them on the podium. Brody Watts just behind him. And Cameron Edwards, Sean McKenzie, Stephen Butcher, and Thor Tuller will end up with 8th place. He put it all on the line. He tried to go round the outside for the race lead, and it didn't pay off.
Oh, have a crack. Have a crack. That's what I was saying. At least have a crack, Thor Tuller, and he absolutely did. That's racing, isn't it? You get out there, somebody misreads the space that's available to them, and somebody else has a real crack. And Sam Chapman, I don't know if he's going to get there and get that spot away from them as well. But it was Cam Dawes on that last lap as well. He did a phenomenal job to actually pick off that spot from Brody Watts. He sent it down at the crest of turn 6 as well in that final lap to nick that one. So that's actually a phenomenal drive from Cam Dawes. Great job.
So John Merritt came from 6th on the grid, and he took that race win. He waited and he waited and he waited till the final lap of the race. And that's when he made his move, and he made it stick. Kyle Ridley got 2nd in the end, and Cam Dawes, well, he got gifted that 3rd place as he saw Thor Tuller out in the runoff at the far end of the track. So Dawes completed the podium ahead of Brody Watts, Cam Edwards, Sean McKenzie, Stephen Butcher. Thor Tuller, he didn't finish the night wondering, unfortunately, when you're 3 wide around the outside in the most committed corner in Sandown Motorsport. It doesn't always work out. And then James Russell and Matthew Harry at the top 10 there. Sam Chapman actually ending up in 11th. Brandon Nealon, Jordan Bielak, and Franz Esteban were the last drivers to finish on the lead lap. Patrick Harding 1 lap down as you saw him try to get out of the way of the leaders late on, and he did a great job of letting them play out their battles for the podium all the way to the end. Retirements, Tony Baker, Caleb Bielak. Didn't see Scott Craig or Lee Partridge in race number 3.
And you know my favourite thing about all that in that last battle on that last lap? Immediately Thor Tuller jumps over, has a look at the replay, and he goes, you know what? That's actually on me. I made that mistake there. All in the quest of sportsmanship. He's gone straight away. Yep, I'm in the wrong here. I wanted to have a crack. We went 3 wide. Yep, that's on me. Fantastic responsibility, sportsmanship, and that is what racing is about. If you make that mistake, stick that hand up, own it. Perfect. Love it from Thor Tuller.
Well, not too long to wait till we go to the next round of the championship from Watkins Glen, which is on the classic boot. So the long layout, but without the bus stop chicane. Some very similar characteristics to Sandown in a way then. Very high average speeds, races, at least for the first half of the lap. A lot like a right turning oval.
More importantly, it's the cultural home of road racing in America, isn't it? It's Watkins Glen. You know, NASCAR's just done their race here across the weekend, and it created some really, really interesting, intriguing storylines heading through there. What can it do for Formula Vee? More long straights, more long flowy corners. Can we go 3 wide? Can we go 5 wide? Well, we'll answer that in a couple of weeks' time. It's Watkins Glen. Thanks very much. That was another cracking race again, Dave. That was actually, I really, really enjoyed that tonight. That's what I needed in my week.
Yeah, so let's chat to some of our race winners briefly before we go. Kyle Ridley got a 1st and a 2nd right in the thick of the action in those final 2 races. Would have worked up a little bit of a sweat, Kyle.
Oh, just a little. Little bit of low-speed chest out there tonight where you didn't necessarily want to lead on the last lap, but you wanted to be P2. And today, Baker was P2 and not Baker, sorry. John Merritt was P2 and he got the win tonight with some good racing.
You managed to wipe his breath off the back of your neck after about 13 laps. I think he was sat there in that final race.
Yeah, I'd done the same thing in race 1. Or similar thing where I'd let P2 go, and then dived it back on. But I knew that mare would be a tougher challenger, put it that way. But then we had that lapped car on the last lap, sitting on the apex of turn 4, and it just blew all my strategies out. And yeah, we went free wide through Donningham, and fortunately we lost 4, but fell Teller, and yeah, it was still honestly good racing for tonight, considering the series and whatnot. I had fun tonight.
Good haul for yourself, 6th, 1st, and a 2nd. Hopefully we'll see you for the next round at Watkins Glen. Any thanks to give at this time?
I'd like to thank my team, Million Motorsports, and all of the associated sponsors, and I want to thank the boys at SLM for giving me a little bit of advice and whatnot in Discord.
Brilliant. Catch you around.
Thank you.
Kyle Ridley, the race 2 winner.
We've got both John Merritt and Cam Dawes. I'll do Cam if you want to do John Merritt afterwards. How about that, Dave?
Go for it. Yeah.
And finally, Cam Dawes manages to crack himself on and grab himself a podium. Cam, you'd be absolutely wrapped with that. That final race was all about a little bit of bravery, a little bit of patience, and a little bit of waiting for the chaos to unfold on that last lap. But, mate, you said we love the dive bomb. There was a couple moments there where you just sent it down the inside and thought, well, if they're not going to have a crack, I'm certainly going to make some passes here and make myself look good.
Yeah, that's it. Pretty stoked. Bummed for Thor that he, I don't know whether it was netcode or whether it went 3 wide, I didn't see it, but bummed he missed out on the podium right at the end there. But nice to get my first podium at the track that's closest to my house in real life, so that's a bit exciting.
Comparing the sim to real world, obviously you would have gone down and you would have had a walk around and you would have familiarized yourself with Sandown in real life. That feeling, like you said, it's nice to get a win here, particularly when it's so close, but that cultural sense of Sandown as a track within Victoria, it fills you with thrills every time you come here to race a car.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, seeing the iRacing is obviously pretty accurate. Seeing the grandstand each lap, and somewhere I've sat and watched races, a dozen times is good fun, and all the pits they're nice and accurate and stuff like that.
And then finally, mate, that battle, the race-long battle in that last race there, tell us, fighting it out, duking it out with the guys like Kyle Ridley, John Merritt, just everyone that's a part of that. And Thor, you said there was a lot of respect for Thor there in that last race. So we were enjoying the battle, enjoying the fight the whole way through.
Yeah, it was heaps of fun. I made an error. I just missed my downshift into turn 1 a few laps before the end, and that's when I lost touch with them. And then I just obviously got lucky with them having a little incident. But yeah, heaps of fun, and everyone was super respectful, which was nice to see. It sounds like maybe it wasn't that way further back in the pack.
All right, congratulations, mate, and your opportunity to thank everyone who makes it possible for you.
Yeah, cheers. I mean, I put my sim together. my sponsors are just where I work and my parents' business, so go buy a Christmas tree farm from Murdoch Christmas Tree Farm and get some photos from Minami Media.
Well, I'll tell you, there was actually some planning going on for the SimSpeed Christmas party a little bit earlier on today. We might have to add that one to the list. Might get ourselves a Christmas tree for the Christmas party. Thank you very much for your time, Cam. Sounds like you had fun tonight, mate. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Cheers, boys. Bye.
Okay, Cam Dawes there. And joining me now, the Race 1 winner, the Race 3 winner, John Merritt. You finished every race higher than you started on the grid.
Yeah, no, it was a good night. Good night. Enjoyed that racing in the final race was pretty intense there on the last lap with that spinner, but no, it was good.
You had your fuse set to a very delayed setting in that final race. It was 13 laps of waiting and 1 lap of attack, and you made it stick.
Yeah, it's sort of the nature of Sandown. Love the track, but probably don't love sim racing on it because it's sort of 2 drag strips and you've just got to bide your time. You sort of can't battle too much during the race, no matter the length, because it's going to come down to that last lap ultimately. And
do you think big picture championship, or every round you're just trying to win some races?
Oh, Dave, mate, I'll sort of go for the W if I can, but I don't think I'm probably in it this season. I've missed too many races and rounds, but So, mate, just want to race respectfully for those that are racing for the championship and sort of enjoy the night.
Well, if you enjoy winning, you've got 2 reasons to have enjoyed Sandown tonight. Anyone you want to thank and a parting message here?
Yeah, just thanks to the Pulse Echuca Toyota boys for coming along for a bit of fun, and of course SimSpeed for the hosting. I should say the stream, and Cam and all the guys for the hard work in the series.
John, I'm sure it won't be too long till SimSpeed TV sees you again. Stay well until then.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
John Merritt, a first, a 6th, and a first at Sandown. And that brings to a close everything from the Formula Vee National Esports Cup, presented by Southern Cross Esports, our round 6 from Sandown Raceway. Just a couple of weeks' time till they're back in action at Watkins Glen. And wherever you're watching now, you'll see it here, there again, with SimSpeed TV coverage. Thank you to Southern Cross Esports, VRace Experience, Echuca Toyota, and Giant Mandurah. This has been a Motorsports Australia Esports series. We'll see you in 3 weeks at Watkins Glen.
Weekend in, weekend out, Motorsport Australia officials are making waves. From waving flags, waving cars through pit lane, or responding to a wave for help. Wave hello to new lifelong friends. Who knows, you might just make waves around the world. Ride the first wave. Search Motorsport Australia officials today.